My mother and I are very close. She raised me alone because my father left us when I was a kid. I always look up to her because for me, she's a definition of a real life superhero. I have seen her work day and night just to support my dreams. She sacrificed so much for me that even if there is nothing left for her, she is more than willing to give everything to me. This is how much she loves me. And I could say that we don't have a fortunate and comfortable life. I could remember how we used to go to different places. After all, we always got kicked out of our apartments because we couldn't pay rent on time. I admit that there are times that I blamed everything on my mother. I would shout at her and rebel at times because I couldn't understand the weight of the situation. And I guess that it is pretty normal for someone to act that way during that age. And I'm so fortunate to have a mother who is patient and understanding. She let me understand the situation and mold me to become resilient and hopeful despite our situation. I could also remember how many people mistreated me. There are times when we reached out for help, but instead of assistance, they gave us side eyes and insults. We were judged, and my mother couldn't even have a permanent job. She would work as a fast food crew, laundry girl, garbage lady, lawn mower, and even a babysitter. It breaks my heart to see her suffer like this all because life wasn't even in our favor. We were born into an unfortunate life pushed below the poverty line. But that doesn't stop me from reaching my dreams. To dream of a better life for me and my mother. So my mother and I worked hard to get me enrolled in a prestigious school, and because I was witty and pretty smart, I got accepted into the university through a scholarship program. I was able to enter a university that provided a quality education. I worked hard to earn my degree and graduate with flying colors, because in this way I can make my mother proud and it can bring us out of poverty. I believe that education was the gate that opened me to so many opportunities and possibilities. As soon as I finished college, I made a mark in the university as one of the best students, and they hired me to become an instructor. I was fortunate to have an instant career opportunity right after college. I teach history at my university, and just less than a year, I was given a promotion. I was able to set my foot high in the field of academia. I was known for my methods of teaching and even for my research studies. Through this, I was able to give my mother our very own house, and that made her happy. And for me, that was the most precious thing I did for her. On top of that, I met the love of my life when I was teaching at the university. I met John, my husband and co-teacher. We dated for almost 2 years until we decided to get married. We were deeply in love with each other, and while I was enjoying my married life, I didn't forget to spoil my mother with all the things she deserves as well. I took her on many travels and let her experience the things we weren't able to experience when I was young. My love for her runs deep. And by the time John and I were able to build a family of three, it is where everything went downhill. I thought I had everything: a loving family, my mother, my own house, car, career, and business. It was one fine morning, and I was out for a lecture at the university when our maid, Tara, contacted me. It feels like my life jumped out of my grasp when she called me and told me the most devastating news. Hello? Yes, Tara, what is it? I'm so sorry to call you this urgent, ma'am, but your mother collapsed and went unconscious. I already called the ambulance and they're on their way. I almost dropped my phone. My heart was beating so fast. My mind floats. I can't afford to lose my mother this early. I hung up and immediately dismissed my class. I hurriedly went to the hospital, and there I saw my mother being rushed to the operating room. I started to panic while staring at my mother being surrounded by doctors. But good thing my husband was with me. He kept me calm and headstrong. But I was so confused as to why he was here earlier than me and why he didn't call me if he was just at home. And I was also so shocked that he and Tara came here together, and that scenario raises an eyebrow. However, it was not the right time to question him about it. I just want to focus my attention and concern on my mother, who is in critical condition. After 4 hours, the doctor came out and talked to me immediately. Her condition is now stable. I let out the deepest sigh. It feels like all the nervousness went out of my system. Thank God, my mother is now safe. Thank you so much, doctor. I owe you my mother's life. However, the sorrow on the doctor's face is also quite evident, and it made me feel panicked once again. What's wrong, doctor? Is there something I should know? I could feel my husband's hands wrapping around my shoulders, giving me comfort. The doctor shook his head, and it made me feel nervous even more. I don't want to hear bad news, but by the looks of it, I think it's worse than that. Your mother is suffering from a brain tumor. The corrupted cells have been there all along, and a pressure or a fatal injury triggered it. What happened to her before she collapsed? I couldn't breathe because of the diagnosis that the doctor told me. My mother has a tumor? No way, and a fatal injury? I looked at Tara. I'm waiting for her to answer because she's the last person that is with my mother. And she noticed me staring at her, so a slight panic was seen on her face. Then she answered to the doctor's question nervously. She just collapsed. I immediately responded to her, and by the time I got to her spot, she was already laying on the ground unconscious. The doctor nodded, forming a conclusion in their mind. I see. It must have been the fall that triggered it, but we will see to it. We will run tests and examine her condition. For now, she's stable, and let us hope it will stay that way for a fast recovery. The doctor patted my shoulders. Be strong, ma'am. After that, he left us. I feel like my whole world collapsed in front of me. Just as I was achieving my dreams, it also became the time when my mother was suffering from a deadly disease. The months went by, and I focused myself between work and taking care of my mother. I would admit that I didn't have time for my family, especially for my husband, but I was thankful that Tara is with us. She helps us with the household chores and everything. After several therapies and medical sessions, the doctor said that my mother gave no signs of recovery. It seems like her body has already given up on the illness. I broke down every night just by the thought that my mother would be gone anytime soon. I don't want to live in this world without her. I am yet to let her live the life that she truly deserves. But if it's her body that gives up, then there is nothing that I can do. So I asked the doctor if I could take her home and continue her medication there, because if her days are already numbered, then I want to spend it with her in the house that I built for us. Also, as her daughter, I took it upon myself to ensure she received the care and comfort she deserved. So I decided to let her stay at home surrounded by familiar faces and the warmth of our family. And the doctor agreed. My mother has her nurse and caregiver, and the doctor would regularly visit the house to check up on her. Despite the pain of her leaving me building up, I never imagined that my life would take such a devastating turn even more. Because as I focused on my mother's well-being, I couldn't ignore the growing suspicion that something was amiss within the walls of our home. My husband John, the person I had once trusted wholeheartedly, had been acting strangely. He seemed distant and preoccupied, often disappearing for hours without explanation. It was as if he was hiding something from me. He's supposed to be the one that was helping me during this tough time, but he is always absent and nearly inconsistent. In short, he changed. He's not the one he used to be anymore, and I'm pretty sure this is all because someone else is in his life. As the days passed, my concerns deepened, and I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that my husband was having an affair. The signs were subtle at first, an occasional secretive phone call, a hushed conversation whenever I entered the room. Every time I ask him to take care of my mother, he refuses. If I talk about concerns about the household, he doesn't look interested, and he doesn't even talk to me with sense anymore. But the doubts began to consume me, fueling my already heightened emotions amidst my mother's deteriorating health. It feels like my past has been haunting me. The feeling of misfortune and negativities have filled my life once again, the same things I felt during my childhood. But I maintain headstrong. I wanted my mother to see me calm and collected. I have to be strong for her. So despite all the possibilities that my husband is cheating, I disregarded all of it and just focused on my mother and her well-being. I decided to take a leave from the university to dedicate all my time and effort to my mother. Aside from that, I also want to play my role as a wife and mother. I spent most of my days taking care of my mother and running errands, and every time I went out, I would leave a camera on standby to record little moments of my mother, so that when she left this world, I have something to reminisce about. In an attempt to ensure my mother received proper care while I ran errands, I assigned Tara to assist her. I trusted her and believed she would treat my mother with the utmost respect and compassion. I reassured myself that there was a caretaker and nurse on duty as well, convinced that my mother was in safe hands. But as the days passed, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. There were moments when I would come home and find Tara and my husband engaged in whispered conversations. They have these secret eye contacts that are very flirtatious. Also, they kept on talking, and in fact, my husband would rather talk to her than to me. Their secretive exchanges only intensified my suspicions, and I felt a sense of betrayal cutting through me like a knife. On top of that, my husband's disdain for my mother's presence in our home became increasingly evident. He resented her living with us, always pushing to send her back to the hospital, but I refused to give in. I wanted to be there for my mother, to provide her comfort and care during her remaining days alive. It was a decision that only fueled the growing tension between John and me. Then, one fateful day, I returned home from an errand. I told Tara to look over my mother, but this time the nurse and caregiver were both off duty. And as soon as I got home, my heart was heavy with worry for my mother. As I stepped inside, an eerie silence enveloped the house. The air seemed heavy with foreboding energy, and an inexplicable sense of dread washed over me. I knew something was wrong. Rushing through the house, I searched for any sign of my mother, hoping to find her safe and sound. But when I reached her room, I was met with a sight that shattered my world. My mother lay motionless, her eyes closed, her spirit gone. There were no signs of an attack or any apparent cause of death. It was as if she had simply slipped away. At that moment, grief and anguish consumed me. I shouted and broke down. I cried until I couldn't properly breathe anymore, all the while clutching my dead mother in my bare arms. I cradled my mother's lifeless body, feeling a deep sense of loss that threatened to suffocate me. But beneath the crushing weight of sorrow, a fierce determination ignited within me. I knew deep within my soul that my mother hadn't died naturally. She had been taken from me, stolen by an unforgivable act. In short, she was murdered. Driven by a desperate need for justice, I began piecing together the fragments of the puzzle, determined to find the truth. And then it happened. I stumbled upon a hidden truth that shattered the fragments of trust I had left. I remembered my secret camera. I immediately reviewed the recent footage when everything had transpired. With trembling hands and a mix of fear and anticipation, I pressed play, revealing the sinister truth. The footage showed Tara and John hatching a wicked plan, plotting my mother's demise. Their face twisted with malice, their voices filled with cold-hearted intent. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. The very people I had entrusted with my mother's care had conspired to take her life. The shock and betrayal washed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me breathless and filled with a mixture of anger and sorrow. At that moment, everything fell into place. The secret conversations, the suspicious behavior, the disdain my husband held for my mother, it all made sense now. John and Tara had plotted to remove my mother from the equation, to eliminate the burden she represented to their clandestine affair. And I also realized that maybe Tara hurt my mother, that's why she got injured and was hospitalized. As the weight of the truth settled upon me, I knew I had to make choice. I could crumble under the weight of my pain and let them get away with their heinous act, or I could rise, confront them, and fight for justice. Despite the grief that threatened to consume me, I found strength within myself. I would not let my mother's death be in vain. I vowed to expose their wickedness, bring the truth to light, and ensure they face the consequences of their actions. With the evidence in hand, I confronted them both. How could you? How could you betray me and take away my mother? He just smirked at me.
Your mother was a burden to us. We had our lives to live, May. She was holding us back.
Tara stood next to him, wearing her smug face. Yeah, you were suffocating us with your constant need to play the dutiful daughter. My hands tightened around the evidence that I hold. I spoke to them while my voice was shaking with anger. You think you can just throw away a person's life like that? You have no idea what my mother meant to me. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, presenting the camera footage. Well, guess what? I have proof of your sick plan. I have evidence of your betrayal and cold-heartedness. John and Tara exchanged nervous glances, their arrogance fading away. The air crackled with tension as I laid bare the betrayal, the camera footage serving as an irrefutable witness to their guilt. His face paled, his eyes darting with a mixture of fear and desperation. He tried to deny it, to conjure up feeble excuses, but I could see the truth etched across his features.
Where did you get that? This means nothing.
It means everything, John. You took away the most precious person in my life, and now you'll pay for it. I reached for my phone and dialed the police. My eyes never left John and Tara. Hello, this is May Thompson. I need to report a murder and provide evidence. Please send the police to my address immediately. Tara tried to grab the phone from my hand, but I stepped back, out of her reach. You can't do this. You have no proof. I smiled with a glimmer of triumph in my eyes. Oh, but I do, Tara. And the police will be here soon to arrest both of you. You'll pay for what you have done. The room falls silent as the weight of my words hanged in the air. Fear and panic begin to take hold of John and Tara.
Mia, please, we can talk about this. We can work something out.
It's too late, John. You made your choice and now you'll face the consequences. The distant sound of sirens grows louder, signaling the approaching police. My determination solidified and I stood tall, ready to face the justice I fought for so hard. But my pursuit of justice didn't end there. I couldn't allow Tara to escape accountability either. I contacted the authorities, sharing the damning evidence I had gathered. The police were taken aback by the revelation, assuring me that they would investigate the matter thoroughly. Days turned into weeks as the investigation unfolded, and then the truth emerged, an intricate web of deceit and betrayal. It wasn't just a simple case of an affair gone wrong. John and Tara were entangled in a larger criminal operation, one that involved fraud and money laundering. My mother's death had become a mere pawn in their sinister game. The police revealed that they had been monitoring John and Tara for some time but lacked the concrete evidence needed to make an arrest. My mother's murder became the key to unlocking a much larger case exposing their involvement in a web of criminal activities. A sense of relief washed over me as the truth was finally revealed to the world. My mother's memory would not be tainted by their wickedness. The police assured me that justice would be served and both John and Tara would face the consequences of their actions. In the aftermath of this harrowing ordeal, I found solace in the love and support of friends and family. Though my heart would forever bear the scars of losing my mother, I knew she would want me to move forward, to embrace life with renewed strength and purpose. I vowed to honor her memory by advocating for justice and ensuring that no other family would suffer at the hands of such treachery. My mother's spirit would guide me, fueling my determination to make a difference and bring light to the darkness. As I stood before her grave, tears mingling with the raindrops, I whispered my final goodbye. The truth had prevailed, and my mother's soul could finally rest in peace. Though the pain would never fully fade,